The One Piece live action is here, and oh, the hype and anticipation behind this one was insane. The fans went from hating and clowning on the show to calling this live action a curse breaker of adaptations. This show right here has been in the making for 7 years, and as the time went on, more and more people jumped on the ship of excitement for One Piece live action. That is because not only the YouTubers of the community heavily believed in this adaptation and tried to push it, but also the showmakers came on a podcast and on a live stream with said YouTubers. But to top that off, when everyone heard that the showrunners and actors were not only huge fans of One Piece, but these people were handpicked or approved by none other than the Lord and Savior Goda, Ichiro Oda himself. After hearing that, every single fan not only had a sigh of relief, but also felt as if this live action right here might be the curse breaker for all live actions, since not only the author of the story is heavily involved with the show's production, but the showrunners and writers have free reign on the project with no restraints on either the budget or the time period. So now here is the big question. Was Netflix's One Piece a curse breaker for anime live action adaptation, or is this a disaster and everything is a lie? Well, no, it is neither of those. Of course, it is not a disaster. Hell, it is far from a disaster. But it is also not a curse breaker for anime live action yet. Before we jump into it, I will just outright say that my feelings for this adaptation are annoyingly in between, because every episode I either feel like, oh boy, this is so good, this is really good, to an immediate, oh, I don't like it, I really don't like it. So this video is going to be one of those where it feels like I'm talking more about the things I don't like, but that is because I just want to justify myself on why I don't like this thing, where on the contrary, the things I did like are going to be in the camp of, oh, this shit was really fucking good, this character is my favorite. I will not be able to go into the details, but I will just gush about them. As a result, this video is going to spoil some details, so here is your warning. The opening of the live action was done really well, because one of my biggest fear while watching the trailer was me liking or getting sold on Roger, because that line of wealth, fame, power is just too iconic. I mean, it is so iconic that it changed the world of One Piece forever, and it really felt as if the world was turning upside down when the actor said those few words at that very moment, when everyone thought that this was the end of piracy. But with just few words from a man about to die, the world lifted the curtains on the great pirate era. And not only that, the people who were present there play a significant role. Just like in the anime, we see little Easter eggs of the characters who we are about to meet, and the character introduction of those people is done super well, like the bounty poster flashing on the screen just when the pirate appears with his bounty glowing and everything. And most of the time, the actors interact with that poster, like cutting it down or grabbing it and throwing it away. My personal favorite was when Buggy was introduced, like he's just sitting there in that awesome pose when the bounty poster flashes on the screen, but Buggy moves it aside immediately, and it is like Buggy saying, how dare you act more flashy than me? I know you are my bounty poster, but not even you get to stand out. The flashiest person here is only me, Buggy. And not just that, Buggy was one of the best part of the live action for me. The actor who plays Buggy is so good. I mean, he's really good. At first, he's introduced as this Joker type menacing character, but as the show goes on, he gets reduced down to, well, a fucking clown. But going back to what I was saying about the world, this world of live action One Piece was really brought to life just like the world of anime or manga One Piece. Whether it the Tenden Mushi, Arlong Park, Going Merry, or the Baratie, everything looked so good. None of it felt out of place or gave off the feeling like, oh, this feels kind of fake to me. And that's not just the world, but most of the characters too. Iñaki Goda really feels like Luffy. I mean, of course, not the same Luffy I know, but I can see Luffy in him, the same way people see Roger in Luffy. Emily Razzanami was also really fucking good. She definitely shined during the dramatic moments of Nami and also the goofy moments, especially with Luffy and Zoro. There are two scenes which stand out for me. They're not some big emotional moments, but the normal day-to-day life or Straw Hats type. The first one when Luffy and Nami are trying to sneak into Captain Morgan's cabin to steal the map of Grand Line, where Nami is trying to be all sneaky and cunning, finessing everyone, and on the other hand, Luffy is just being the complete opposite of sneaky. And the second one was when Zoro and Nami are just bickering, which was pretty close to how both of them act. Both of them definitely have that sibling energy like in the anime. In fact, the biggest surprise for me was how good Zoro was. I know, I'm just repeating myself, but Makenyu really fucking killed it. At first, it felt like he was really trying his best to be that cool, badass guy, but that quickly becomes hilarious when Luffy and Nami come into the picture. It was especially hilarious when they made gags out of Zoro's alcoholic tendencies. There are moments where it felt like the lines he delivered did not exactly hit the way they were supposed to, but that may be me being used to Zoro's Japanese voice actor. Aside from that, I do think Zoro had the best fights in the One Piece live action. Each and every fight was so good. The choreography, the stunts, the way camera moved, all of it was so good, especially the one at the Shellstone bar. And one other thing I want to add, we kind of see how Zoro becomes less brutal over time after meeting Luffy. At first, we see Zoro cutting Mr. 7 in two and stuffing him into a body bag just so he could collect his bounty. And for those who are wondering if this did happen in the manga, the answer is yes and kind of no. Yes, Zoro did kill Mr. 7 from Baroque Works, but it was never shown. He just mentioned it to Igaram and Mr. 1, how he was easy to cut down. Sanji and Usopp, who were also there. Okay, this is where I stopped singing the praise of live action. Sanji and Usopp were the most overlooked characters of the live action, and it was not even the actors' fault. Taz Skyler and Jacob Gibson played their role really well. I mean, they shined every moment when they were on the screen. Not only that, both of them had great chemistry with the rest of the cast, especially Sanji. The way Taz carried himself felt as if Sanji really came out of the manga. He captured the vibe of cool, fly, ass-kicking love cook perfectly, but the problem they faced was the pacing of the show. The pacing is one of the biggest issues for me. The first two episodes of live action had so many things. I mean, we get to Shell's Town and Orange Town with Zoro's introduction, Nami's introduction, and Luffy's backstory. I will talk about backstories in general later in the video, but in hindsight, 2 hours should have been more than enough for all of this. But it gets bogged down by unnecessary stuff because the live action has one massive change, and that is Garp trying to catch Luffy, which, I will not sugarcoat it, is just terrible. The whole B plot where Garp recruits Kobe and Helmeppo and goes after Luffy is the worst decision showmakers could have made. Not only that, I think the way they wrote Garp is a major misrepresentation of his character. I'm not saying the actor did a bad job. On the contrary, I think he did a hell of a job doing what he was given. He looks like Garp and feels like he could be Garp, but his dialogue and actions fails to capture even the slightest representation of what Garp is supposed to be. Garp feels like that one uncle who is really cool and you love to see him whenever you get the chance. In the public eye, he's the embodiment of justice and doing whatever feels right as long as you have no regrets about the things you do. He's the hero of Marines, not because he claims that title like the warlords, emperors, or Luffy trying to be the pirate king, but people call him that because he represents the hope of people and doing what is right. But in reality, he's just a dude who loves rice crackers and does whatever he wants and lets people do whatever they want. I mean, yes, he does want his grandsons to be Marines like he was, and yes, he was overly passionate about that, but once they did set out to sea, he said fuck it, let them live their own lives. He did give them some fist of love, but it was never in a scary way. We always saw right through him that he truly cared for his grandsons, and that's because he always acted in a goofy way just like Luffy. But in the live action, he feels like Boichi Akainu mixed with Smoko and Sengoku with the eating habits of Garp. Like there are multiple scenes where Garp, Monkey D. Garp, the man who captured Goldie Roger and is hailed as the hero of the Marines, one of the most chillest dudes in all 4 blues, is throwing a tantrum because he cannot capture a 17-year-old boy. It goes from Garp being genuinely angry to him laughing maniacally as if he's having a mental breakdown, and there are multiple scenes of Garp singing his own praise. Like the thing which really took me out was him telling Kobe that if he wanted, he could have been Fleet Admiral, but he turned them down. Or when Garp called Mihawk to capture Luffy, that was really something else. Garp asking someone else to do his job, especially a warlord at that, which is really wild. And due to all this unnecessary fluff, the things which really mattered were left out. Since all of the Garp stuff was added, Zoro's flashback was pushed into Syrup Village in the arc which was supposed to be about Usopp, and it felt as if Usopp was just there. And when Luffy told Usopp to hop on his ship, it felt like that came out of nowhere. I mean, I get it why Luffy asked him, but at the same time, I really don't get it. That final interaction felt as if Usopp really didn't want to go to this party, but all of his friends are going, and they are really trying to convince him to join them, and that is the sole reason he's joining. And Sanji was also done dirty, but Baratie as a whole whole kind of got the worst treatment due to the same reason. Because the fight at the Baratier was completely omitted due to Don Krieg not showing up and demanding the restaurant, which resulted in big things being cut, like Sanji having that initial banter with Zoro about putting his life on the line for his dream. And I think the biggest one of it all was Sanji being completely absent when Zoro and Mihawk had their duel. One of the biggest reasons Sanji joined the Straw Hats was because he saw Zoro's determination of him wanting to be the world's greatest swordsman. He saw a man putting his life on the line, sacrificing everything just for a chance to achieve his dream. And after seeing that same determination in Luffy when he defeats Don Krieg, Sanji finally decides to pursue his dream with all the other Straw Hats, and all of that was completely cut out from the live action, which kind of completely goes against the heart of One Piece. Usually we meet one of our future crew members who has long given up on his or her dream due to circumstances. Then the squad pulls up, and after seeing every single one of them try their hardest to achieve their dream, that thing rubs off on that person, which results in them picking back up their own dream and finally joining the crew. But this thing right here never happened with either Sanji or Usopp. Especially Sanji's thing was really weird. Like Zeph and Sanji were arguing as they usually do, and Sanji says, "Maybe if you don't like my cooking, I will join the Choba's crew. You offered me a job anyway." To that Zeph says, "Yeah, get lost, never come back." And Sanji leaves. And I was like laughing. Wait, what? So you quit now after years of Zeph trying to kick you out so you could follow your own dream? I mean, Luffy didn't do shit. Hell, he did not even say his iconic line, which was,
死ぬことは恩返しじゃねえぞ。そんなつもりで助けてくれたんじゃねえ。生かしてもらって死ぬなんてな。弱えやつのやることだ。
which results in Sanji repaying Zeph's debt by not only following his dream but also fulfilling Zeph's in process. And all of that is omitted, and Baratie turns into a watered down version of Water 7, which is like a build up for Arlong Park, where Arlong also kind of suffers a similar problem. Instead of just making him a hateable character, they try to add elements from Fishman Island and try to make Arlong a misunderstood villain. But all of that kind of falls flat for me. Like, the reason this thing worked with Arlong in the manga or anime is because he never once mentioned about fishmen being treated as inferior creatures. On the contrary, he always thought fishmen as a superior race, and he hated humans for being weak. And that kind of got our blood pumping in Arlong Park, because up until now we never had met fishmen, and all of them we met were kind of terrible people who made Nami suffer, and we subconsciously jumped to the conclusion that all the fishmen had a superiority complex. Hell, even Sanji and Luffy called them a lousy fish. But after finding out what they had been through, we feel bad for them and kind of feel guilty and regret thinking that way. But all those things were done gradually, from Water 7 when we met Kokoro, to Sabaody when Hachi got redeemed, to finally meeting Jinbei. But the live action tried to capture all those things in one arc, so you have the complete picture of the things. But you kind of shouldn't. To explain what I'm saying in a better way, let me tell you a rule about photography. Know your focus, which means if you have too much going on in your frames, that will lead the person who is looking at it nowhere. That person will just keep searching for a point of focus, and eventually they will get bored of looking if they can't find one. I think that applies not only to this arc but to show as a whole. I know I've just went on and on about my complaints about One Piece live action, but I'm doing that because I think One Piece live action has some real potential. I want to justify my gripes, and also kind of wanted to make you understand where I'm coming from. If I wanted to just shit on live action, I could have easily made a rant video just shitting on all the negatives while not mentioning anything positive. But I do think the live action team can achieve what Last of Us has, which is breaking the curse of live action. If I was to judge it by comparing other live action of anime exclusive, I will think this is the best live action ever. But I, in good conscience, wouldn't recommend this to non-One Piece fan just to watch it as a show. If you love One Piece, this is a must watch for you. But I know this show can be a whole lot more than just a fan service for the One Piece fans, because you can see it. Every single person who has worked on it has put their heart and soul into this one. Every single episode is filled with references and Easter eggs. Hell, even the clothes of the crew are straight out of color spreads and reader request front page. This is not the disaster which everyone thought it was going to be, but I also do not think that this is close to the TV show which will make everyone go crazy, like Last of Us, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, which were also adapted from the original source material. But I do feel it has the potential to do exactly that. They just need to work on the pacing young and they don't have to do unnecessary things. I really do hope get a chance for season 2, because if they nail season 2, which probably will be Alabasta Saga, Netflix's One Piece might be the next big thing.
The One Piece! The One Piece is real!